Heyo! Last week Wuthering Waves came out, and man has it been fun. Originally I was thinking of streaming first impressions on the release date, but it opened so late in the day and I had to work in the morning, so instead I just put on my recorder to capture my thoughts as they came to mind and, I guess the sound of me eating apples. I know it's not my normal content here, but I wanted to try something different. You're probably subscribed for Aura Kingdom, so if you're seeing this first day, please do join tonight for the livestream of the Hero Sky Tower. As for whether I will continue to talk about Wuthering Waves, well, I guess it depends. My opinion of the game is basically the same thing as what most people have been saying. My notes scrawled on this here paper from the next day at work were originally broken into 4 categories. Good, question mark, technical, and sad face. It's pretty universally agreed that the combat feels fun, and I agree. Obviously, I am personally still in the very early stages of the game, especially for me, since every day since launch I've been working 12 hours, so I really haven't had time to make much progress. But, while I normally like button mashing, I also really like the dodge timing and counter timing, as well as the effects and animation that feel really satisfying in Wuthering Waves. And that's what makes action combat fun for me. I also like that running on the map across normal terrain doesn't take any stamina. It's a small thing, but even though I didn't have much time to play, I wanted to run around and open up the map just to get a feel for the scope we have. Getting around was satisfying as heck, and I may have stayed up a little too late for a work night on Thursday. The music is great. I love it. And since the theme of the game is around sound, it makes sense that they would have a great soundscape for the game. It may not be everyone's taste, as it does have a very ambient sort of vibe, but at work on Friday I found a playlist of the original soundtrack on YouTube and listened to that all day. The field map areas were so relaxing, I almost fell asleep at my desk, to be honest. I also really like the transition from field to combat, which isn't too jarring. I'm going to skip over my question mark notes here and move on to the technical notes. Guerrilla Games has been very quick to address the community, recognizing the issues that it's had so far. On Thursday after work when I logged in, there were 10 standard pulls compensation in my mailbox, plus 10 more as a present from the livestream. On Friday when I logged in, there was 10 featured pulls compensation in my inbox, and now they have announced that there will be 10 more featured pulls and a standard banner 5-star of choice coupon being sent out. People's first impressions of the game is really important, and they know that if technical issues that stop people from playing make players lose interest, they will leave. And right now is the point when they have the most attention and interest from players. Personally, I didn't run into any major issues with the actual performance of the game. I don't have the best computer in the world, but I'm running at max settings. Maybe a bit of frame rate loss at times? I don't play a bunch of high-fidelity games anyway, so that kind of stuff doesn't bother me in the slightest, and it's never been while I'm trying to fight, causing my timing on dodging to miss. Sadly, the technical issues that I ran into will probably be much lower in priority to fix, and I do want to talk about them, not because I'm some important person who they need to listen to, but because I thought it was odd how many of them relate to the sounds in the game. Starting from the start, there's no way to adjust the settings before going into the game, at least not on PC with the standalone launcher. You can't turn down the quality, adjust the resolution, mess with the volume or anything like that from the launcher or from the in-game main menu before starting. This is a problem for me for 2 reasons. First off, I have to crank down the volume on everything, always, because of my delicate ears and odd volume problems on Windows. And second, it means I can't switch to the Japanese dub from the start. This is not shade against English voice actors. I personally understand a good amount of Japanese, so I prefer to use the Japanese dub to make sure I get enough exposure to the language on a daily basis to keep my language skills functional, and also I like to compare the English text, which should be the English dub translation, to the Japanese voiceover because sometimes there are interesting differences. And this is especially interesting to me when neither is the original script. And further, to not being able to adjust the settings, for some reason I can't play at 1920 by 1080 full screen. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but something doesn't feel right about the way I had to fight with the menu, and it doesn't look as clear and sharp as I would expect. Anyway, the next audio problem I had was that the music in voiceover always cuts out for a second after every loading screen. That was a weird... Sound drop there. It sounds like it should have a nice ambient transition into the new region's background music, and when I was progressing the story, the characters would often start talking as soon as the map loads, but it would cut out for a moment every time. The footage is from the first day, but it was still happening this morning when I was playing. Next, changing the voice language doesn't seem to change the speed of the auto-advance conversation. I was trying to eat my apples and peanut butter snack, occupying both hands while watching the story events, but I thought the auto-advance was a little on the slow side, until I started seeing that on long lines it would actually cut off the voice actors mid-line as well. I also saw that when characters are speaking while moving around on the map, the lines are on screen in the center for you to read, but if they're too long to fit in the space, those lines do not scroll. So if you don't understand the language you're listening to, you will miss stuff. These are obviously much less important than fixing the issues with performance that actually stop players from being able to enjoy the game, but as someone who specifically loves music and sound design in video games, a game that has strong themes of sound and then kinda drops the ball on making the soundscape the immaculate experience it deserves to be with these frequent jarring drops and odd interruptions, is a little depressing. Something ludonarrative. I'm personally hoping that going forward, we can see the sound-related themes more in the actual audio of the game. The last two sections of my original notes about the game were question mark, and sad face, and they specifically refer to my reaction to what seemed like a very odd choice in the voice acting, and my sadness that the story didn't really hit right so far. The triple question mark was something I jotted down thinking about a particular scene when we were inside the academy looking into the items that were given to us by Sanhua. After putzing around a bit, we get a section of the rover main character monologuing about what we found so far. Oh, he talks.
一つの印から複数の目的地へたどり着くことも可能。レインが俺に会いたい理由は伝えたい情報があるから。俺が彼女に会いたい。
It was so odd. I'm not comparing this to Genshin just because there's no other games that have mostly silent protagonists, but when you have silent protagonists, you can really elevate the moments you want to draw attention to with having voiced lines, which I think Genshin has done very well. I think it's actually more impactful the less they say, normally. So, even if this conversation is intended to draw you to pay attention to the clues you have so far about these 4 items, I think what it really achieves is detracting from the impact that the main character speaking out loud can have going forward. I really felt like that was the wrong place to use that. As for the sad face, I made some notes about how I felt like some gentle reframing would have helped the story be a lot more engaging. I actually ended up writing a lot about it, right up to the point where you meet the monk Janshin trying to leave the city, and that's where I actually stopped progressing and just went to kill stuff. So I haven't even played any of the story past there. I won't actually bore you with my ideas. If you're curious about my lack of ability to tell a story, you can read the short story I wrote and do the exact same thing to it, I'm sure. But I feel like the main issue I have is that it feels like they knew they wanted these characters to come together and travel together, but skipped trying to put motivations in there. And maybe it's too complicated right off the bat. Some of these elements could have taken some more time to be introduced to keep a tight focus at the start. We fell from the sky, we have no memory, we gave a dragon a boop on the snoot, and our hand ate an echo. These are the only things I'm really interested in getting more information about right now, so spending another 2 hours frittering around town with these 4 tokens really didn't do anything for me. Oh, and also, where is our home? Didn't Sanhua give us a place to stay in City Hall? I checked. There's not even a room for us to go into. 0 out of 10, no place to call home. Anyway, my final note is that the combat reminded me a lot of God Eater. I know that God Eater doesn't have all the same mechanics, but the way you move around feels similar, and it triggered my God Eater muscle memory, especially in the way that running and dodging and jumping feels. So, if you're not interested in playing games designed around gachas that try to get hooks into your wallet, even if they are very fun mechanically, that's my recommendation. Give God Eater a try. Right now, I'm personally safe from those hooks because the shop is showing US prices and the exchange rate is too scary to even think about spending. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Wuthering Waves for now. I think I will continue to play, as I am very much enjoying the way it feels to play, which is what makes an action combat game good to me. Anyway, don't forget to join us tonight for the Transcendent Raid Night livestream. Thanks for watching and catch you next time.